You are not losing because you are weak. You are losing because you are visible. In every field, the truly powerful don't compete. They isolate the competition. They use one subtle manipulation. Not to play the game better, but to make sure no one else can play it at all. In this video, I will show you how to weaponize isolation as strategy, so you can dominate silently while others destroy themselves in open conflict. The world you walk in is not a marketplace of talent. It is an arena of hidden warfare. Every handshake conceals ambition. Every alliance carries a seed of betrayal. Yet most men cling to the illusion of fairness, believing merit will speak for them. It never does. Those who rise to true power do not compete under equal terms. They manipulate the field itself. They learn to isolate threats, control the flow of attention, and dictate which voices are heard and which are forgotten. Today, we descend into that psychology, not of victory through skill, but through strategic isolation. The art of ensuring that when the battle begins, only your voice remains. They tell you the world is a competition. That if you work harder, polish your skills, and stay authentic, success will reward you. But this is the first illusion the powerful construct. A polite lie meant to keep you running in circles, while they design the track beneath your feet. You think you're racing. They are quietly removing obstacles, and sometimes removing the other racers altogether. Competition is the theater of control. It gives people the feeling of progress while ensuring the outcome remains predictable. Ask yourself, who benefits most from your endless striving? Is it you, or the one who defines what winning means? In every age, those who ruled didn't win by outcompeting their rivals. They won by rewriting the rules of competition itself. Consider Caesar. He didn't outfight Pompey through strength alone. He made himself indispensable to the soldiers, the Senate, and the people. When he crossed the Rubicon, he had already won, because his enemies were playing by laws he no longer obeyed. This is the essence of manipulation, not fighting within a system, but bending it to your will. And while others argue over fairness, you quietly ensure that the very idea of fairness serves your power. The masses worship equal opportunity. The rulers design equal systems, knowing equality never truly exists. It is the illusion of balance that keeps others from questioning who holds the scale. So you must ask, why play the game when you can own the arena? Most people compete for recognition. They crave to be seen, to be validated. But recognition is the leash that keeps them predictable. The truly powerful manipulate recognition, giving it sparingly, withdrawing it completely, and using it as currency. You cannot dominate if you are still addicted to being seen. Visibility is a weakness. It exposes your methods, your desires, your rhythm. The master of manipulation stays half in shadow, visible enough to inspire fear, hidden enough to remain untouchable. History repeats this pattern. When the Medici family ruled Florence, they didn't announce their power. They let others fight for public glory while they pulled invisible strings through banks, marriages, and favors. Their rivals sought applause. The Medicis sought obedience. Which do you seek? The illusion of victory, or the machinery that decides it? Competition is emotional warfare disguised as meritocracy. It seduces you into showing your strategy, your effort, your hunger. And once you reveal it, you are no longer dangerous. The predator who exposes his teeth too soon loses the hunt. You must learn to simulate competition, appear engaged, but remain detached. Let others burn their energy proving themselves. You must be studying the rules, tracing who enforces them, and finding the cracks in their structure. That is where control hides, not in playing the game, but in reshaping it. Modern psychology calls this framing. Whoever controls the frame controls the interpretation. The frame decides what is normal, acceptable, or powerful, and those trapped within it never question its maker. Think of the corporate world. Employees are told they compete for promotions. In truth, they compete for approval from those who already chose their favorites months ago. They polish their image, not their leverage. And yet, they smile, believing their performance matters. That's the beauty of the lie. It gives them hope while ensuring obedience. The same principle governs social hierarchies, politics, even relationships. People are manipulated through invisible standards. Beauty ideals, success metrics, moral codes, all crafted by those who benefit from your compliance. So, what should you do? First, stop believing in the purity of competition. It is never pure, it is always engineered. Then, identify the architects of your field, those who shape visibility, access, and reward. Do not compete with your peers. Make yourself useful to those who decide what winning means. Influence the referees, and you will never need to fight the players. Finally, practice strategic withdrawal. Do not run every race. Enter only when the conditions favor your control. A lion does not chase every gazelle. It selects one, ensures the terrain is narrow, and then strikes with certainty. Manipulation is not cruelty, it is clarity. The clarity to see that fairness is a mask worn by power, and those who unmask it no longer need to beg for victory. You will find that once you reject the myth of competition, your energy shifts. You stop proving and start positioning. You stop fighting for space and start designing it. And soon, those who once seemed ahead of you will unknowingly follow paths you created long before they began to run. Because while they competed, you constructed the world they were competing in. Now, what happens when you learn to isolate the competition entirely? That is the next step, the art of removing every rival without ever throwing a punch. There is a reason the most powerful men in history walked alone, not because they feared others, but because they understood the noise of others dilutes control. Isolation is not loneliness. It is refinement. It is the purification of focus, where the unnecessary burns away and only strategy remains. Yet most people fear being alone more than they fear failure. They crave company, conversation, validation, the constant hum of other minds. But that noise is not comfort. It's infiltration. Every voice you allow near your own becomes a negotiation. Every opinion you entertain becomes a fragment of your control surrendered. Look around you. Everyone wants access to your attention, your friends, your rivals, even your devices. Each tugging at the threads of your will, each whisper shaping your perception of the world. They don't have to conquer you, they only have to keep you distracted. This is why isolation, when practiced with purpose, becomes a weapon. Think of a ruler sitting above a noisy court. The courtiers argue, flatter, gossip, drowning one another in words. But the ruler remains silent, elevated, unmoved. He listens, but commits to nothing. He lets the noise cancel itself out, until only truth remains. That is how you must learn to operate. Withdraw from the chatter long enough to see who truly has influence and who merely makes sound. When you isolate, you begin to see the invisible architecture of manipulation around you. You start to hear the silence between words, the intentions behind gestures. The power plays beneath conversation. Because distance sharpens vision, clarity does not live in the crowd. Even in war, commanders understand this principle. The best generals isolate the battlefield, cutting communication lines, severing reinforcements, trapping their enemies in confusion. They don't win by brute strength, they win by disconnection. The side that controls information controls reality. Isolation is the psychological version of that tactic. By controlling who reaches your mind, you decide what becomes true within it. You see, power begins with inner sovereignty, the ability to choose your inputs. But most people surrender that sovereignty daily. They allow anyone to speak into their mind media, gossip, weakness disguised as advice. Then they wonder why their will feels divided. Your energy follows your attention, and attention scattered among the unworthy is power wasted. Learn to isolate yourself not just physically, but mentally. Cut off the indulgent conversations, the endless validation loops, the need to be understood. The more people understand you, the easier you are to predict, and the predictable can never rule. Do you remember how ancient emperors communicated? Rarely. They were seen less, spoken to less, and understood least of all. Mystery became their armor, silence their language of command. The same principle applies today. You do not need to speak more, you need to be heard less. Because what is rare becomes powerful, and what is constant becomes cheap. In modern life, people flood their minds with noise. News cycles, social validation, chatter about others' achievements. They drown in information, mistaking awareness for intelligence. But the wise withdraw. They choose silence, not out of fear but out of discipline. They know that power concentrates in stillness, like heat within a sealed chamber. When you isolate, something fascinating happens. Your mind begins to reorder itself. You start seeing patterns you missed before, connections between actions, motives, and results. You begin to recognize how people use access as control, how they occupy your mental space so you never have time to create your own structure. Isolation reclaims that space. But there's another layer, more dangerous, more strategic. When you isolate yourself, you also isolate others. You deny them the ability to read you, to influence you, to predict your next move. You remove their leverage. They cannot manipulate what they cannot touch. The absence you create becomes a mirror. They project their fears, their desires, their confusion onto it. And as they chase shadows, you move quietly, unobserved. This is how the powerful operate. They appear detached, yet everything they do is deliberate. They do not chase the noise. They make others fight for their silence. Isolation, then, is not withdrawal. It is control disguised as distance. It's the art of stepping back, not to escape, but to dominate from above. When you learn to cut the noise, you don't lose influence. You amplify it, because every word you speak after silence lands with the weight of inevitability. Every move you make feels calculated, deliberate, untouchable. Most people live in reaction. You must live in design. Isolation gives you that design. So ask yourself, who truly commands your mind right now? Whose noise fills your silence? And if you were to cut it all away, what power would remain? Because in that quiet, that pure, unbroken solitude, lies something your rivals will never understand. A state where influence no longer pulls you, but radiates from you. Power is not in what you know. It is in who gets to know you. Most people believe influence is built by connection, by being available, visible, responsive. But in truth, the moment you make yourself easily accessible, you dissolve your value. You become common, predictable, a resource instead of a force. The powerful understand that access is currency. And like all currencies, it gains value through scarcity. Ask yourself, how many people can reach you, speak to you, question you, interrupt your thoughts? Each one is a drain on your sovereignty. Each open door is a point of entry for manipulation. A king surrounded by everyone is not powerful. He is vulnerable. He listens to too many tongues, and soon he can't tell loyalty from flattery. But a ruler who controls access controls perception. He becomes myth, not man. Consider how ancient courts operated. A monarch did not meet his subjects freely. Petitions went through layers of guards, advisors, and messengers, each one amplifying his importance. By the time a request reached him, it was no longer a conversation, it was an event. The delay itself created reverence. The barrier transformed his attention into a privilege. The manipulation of access is not cruelty. It is the architecture of power. It teaches people to value what they cannot easily touch. In psychology, we call this intermittent reinforcement. The mind becomes addicted not to constant approval, but to unpredictable recognition. When you grant attention sparingly, others start to chase it. They mistake your silence for depth, your distance for superiority. You can create this same dynamic in your own sphere. Withdraw slightly, and people begin to wonder. Speak rarely, and every word becomes significant. Be seen less often, and your presence multiplies in their imagination. This is how myth is born, through distance. Every great leader, artist, or strategist who mastered perception understood this law: to control others, control their access to you. Even in modern life, this principle governs everything. Think of how elite clubs function. They don't boast about membership, they deny it. They let the masses desire what they can't have, until the pursuit itself becomes a form of worship. Or look at the digital world. The influencer who posts constantly fades into noise. but the one who disappears only to return with precision. They create anticipation, hunger, power. You can sense this in personal relationships too. When you're always available, your presence loses impact. When you disappear strategically, you gain gravity. People lean forward when they feel you could vanish again. Control of access manipulates perception of value. And perception, not truth, is the foundation of authority. Now, ask yourself this: do you control who enters your time, or do others walk in freely? Does your attention serve your strategy, or do you serve theirs? A mind that is always reachable can never be truly feared or respected, because power requires distance, emotional, intellectual, and social. It must be approached, never assumed. Even history's most cunning rulers used gatekeepers as extensions of this principle. Napoleon surrounded himself with layers of officers and aides, each controlling who could see him. His presence was engineered like a ritual. Every encounter choreographed, every delay deliberate. It wasn't arrogance, it was design. He made his own attention the ultimate reward. You must do the same. Make access to you conditional, not on emotion, but on merit, purpose, and alignment. This filters the parasites from the powerful. It ensures that those who reach you bring value instead of noise. There is also a deeper psychology at work. Humans crave what they cannot predict. When you remove certainty, you create obsession. When people cannot gauge your rhythm, they start to orbit you, seeking approval, clarity, or connection. You become a gravitational center, not because you give more, but because you allow less. The art lies in the balance. Be too distant, and they forget you. Be too available, and they consume you. Power lives in that narrow line between presence and absence. A well-timed reply, a rare appearance, a silence that commands attention. Even the ancient philosophers understood this. They didn't lecture every day. They withdrew to think, to refine, to let their ideas ferment. Their absence created intrigue, their return, revelation. In every domain, politics, business, influence, or intimacy, this rule endures: the less they can reach you, the more they reach for you. So limit access, not from pride, but from calculation. Not to seem superior, but to remain sovereign. Power doesn't shout, it withholds. It doesn't chase attention, it makes attention earn the right to approach. You are not valuable because of what you give. You are valuable because of what you guard. And once you learn to control access, you stop begging for influence and begin deciding who deserves to experience it. But there is a darker layer still. One that doesn't just control attention, but weaponizes it. That is the next move. The psychology of starvation, where silence becomes domination. Attention is the oxygen of ambition. Without it, even the most confident minds begin to suffocate. You want to break a rival. Don't argue with them. Don't attack them. Just ignore them. Starve them of attention, and watch them consume themselves. Most people believe attention is just observation, but it is far more lethal than that. Attention validates existence. To be seen is to feel real. To be ignored is to die in the mind of others, and soon in your own. This is why kings once used banishment as punishment worse than death. Exile erased a man's name, his voice, his relevance. He was no longer a person. He was a rumor fading in memory. And that, my friend, is the deepest form of defeat, not destruction, but erasure. Every manipulator knows this. When you respond, you feed. When you react, you empower. But when you withhold, you control. Consider this carefully. The most dangerous men in history mastered silence. They understood that attention creates dependency, and dependency creates leverage. Take the church during the Renaissance. When a thinker challenged its authority, the church didn't always respond immediately. It watched, waited, starved the heretic of acknowledgement, until the public lost interest. Only when silence failed did it strike. By then, the target was already isolated, desperate for relevance. You see, public silence is a form of invisible punishment. It tells the ambitious you do not matter, and the mind cannot bear insignificance. Psychology calls this social starvation. Humans are built to seek recognition. Our self-worth feeds on feedback. When you remove that, people unravel. They overact, they over-explain, they expose their weakness. That's when you strike. So ask yourself, how often do you feed your enemies with your attention? Every argument, every reply, every emotional reaction is nourishment. You're feeding the fire you wish to extinguish. Stop feeding it. Withdraw recognition, and your silence will do what words never could. It will remind them that their existence depends on yours. Think of how children behave when ignored. They escalate. They shout louder, act out, demand to be noticed. Adults are no different, only their tantrums are more sophisticated. The politician gives another speech. The critic writes another post. The rival tries another tactic. All because your silence makes them starve. This is the law of psychological power. What you refuse to give becomes what others crave most. Your approval, your recognition, your reaction. Each is a thread of control. And the fewer threads you offer, the more entangled they become in pursuit of them. It's not just for enemies. This principle rules attraction, leadership, even influence. When you give constant validation, people grow numb to it. They stop respecting it. And you. But when you withhold it, their imagination fills the gap. They start to question, to crave, to obey. In relationships, the same pattern rules. The one who needs attention least commands the rhythm. Their silence creates suspense, their acknowledgement becomes reward. That dynamic, left unbroken, evolves into power. History confirms this. When the Roman general Scipio Africanus returned victorious from war, he didn't parade his success endlessly. He withdrew. His silence magnified his legend. The people's hunger for his presence became worship. His absence shouted louder than any triumph could. Learn from that. Speak less, vanish often, let curiosity do your work. Attention once withdrawn becomes magnetic when returned. But be cautious, starvation must be calculated, not cruel. If you starve too long, you risk losing interest entirely. The art lies in timing. Deny just enough to create longing, then reward with precision. This rhythm of withholding and releasing shapes devotion. You can apply it anywhere. In negotiation, let silence pressure the other side. In leadership, make your attention conditional on excellence. In rivalry, deny acknowledgement until they collapse beneath their own desperation. People will call you cold. Let them. Warmth invites intrusion, coldness commands respect. Remember, emotional control is not detachment from feeling, but mastery of distribution. You decide when, where, and to whom your attention flows. And when you master that, you become the source others orbit around. Because in the end, power is not about being loved, or even feared. It's about being needed. And nothing creates need like the absence of attention. So the next time someone tries to provoke you, to pull you into their emotional chaos, do not react. Smile slightly and vanish. Let their hunger work for you. Because silence, when used deliberately, is not emptiness. It is dominance disguised as indifference. Starve them, and they will feed on their own weakness. But there's one more level of this art. Not just controlling attention, but constructing a world where only your presence defines reality itself. The higher you climb, the thinner the air becomes, and the fewer people can breathe beside you. Most men chase leadership, but few understand its cost. The loss of equality, the end of companionship, and the transformation of every relationship into a calculation. You cannot dominate while standing among equals. You must stand above, and that height comes with solitude. It is a paradox. You build influence by commanding people, yet the more control you gain, the less human connection you are allowed to have. The crown you seek weighs not only with gold, but with distance. Do you think Alexander the Great shared his plans with his generals? He listened to them, yes, but trusted none fully, because every confidant is a potential rival. Every friendship, a possible betrayal. He understood that the throne is not a seat of glory, but a fortress of isolation. He died surrounded by soldiers, servants, and admirers, and yet utterly alone. That is the dominator's paradox. You rule many, but belong to no one. The weak call this loneliness. The strong call it freedom. Because once you detach from the need to be understood, you become impossible to manipulate. The world's approval no longer dictates your direction. You become your own compass, cold, precise, and incorruptible. Ask yourself, how many decisions have you made just to be accepted? How many times have you lowered your ambition to avoid standing alone? Every time you do, you trade sovereignty for comfort. Power and comfort do not coexist. You must choose. History honors those who chose isolation over inclusion. Julius Caesar trusted his own will more than the Senate's. That trust made him emperor, and their resentment made him immortal. Even his death was proof of his dominance. 20 men had to unite just to destroy one. Understand this: the powerful do not seek company. They create followers, disciples, instruments. They are surrounded not by equals, but by extensions of their will. The greatest manipulators mastered this design. They built circles, not to belong, but to command. Each person around them served a function, one for information, one for execution, one for admiration. No one had all access. This fragmentation protected the core, the ruler's mind. You must learn to do the same. Never give any one person the full map of who you are. Divide your alliances. Keep your intentions compartmentalized. That way, even if one betrays you, they can never destroy you. In psychology, this is called controlled detachment. It's the ability to engage without attachment, to participate without surrender. It allows you to use people without being used by them. You'll notice that the more power you acquire, the less genuine the people around you become. They laugh too quickly. They agree too easily. They admire without question. They mirror your tone, your ideas, your rhythm, because they are no longer speaking to you, but to what you represent, and you must accept this distortion. You are no longer seen as a person, but as a symbol. Symbols cannot afford weakness. This is where most fall. They crave companionship within the structure of their dominance. A fatal mistake. The moment you need someone to stand beside you, they gain leverage over you. Need is the enemy of control. So cultivate solitude, but not bitterness. Isolation does not mean emotional death. It means emotional discipline. You learn to draw energy from silence, clarity from absence. You begin to understand what every true ruler eventually learns, that peace is not found in company, but in control. Even in modern life, the pattern holds. The CEO, the influencer, the political leader, all crave connection, yet must filter every word, every gesture, every emotion. Because one moment of raw humanity can undo years of constructed power. You cannot be both transparent and untouchable. Choose untouchable. The dominator's paradox is not a tragedy. It's a transformation. You trade warmth for command, companionship for control. And what you lose in comfort, you gain in clarity. This detachment becomes your armor. It allows you to act when others hesitate, to decide without begging for consensus. It frees you from the chaos of emotion, the noise that governs ordinary minds. Eventually, you will look around and realize there are no equals left. Only pawns, allies, and observers. It is then that you will understand true power not being loved, nor even feared, but needed by all and understood by none. And if that realization chills you, good. Because it means you're beginning to see the cost of domination clearly. The top is not a place of celebration. It is a throne carved from distance. And once you sit on it, you can never descend without being devoured. But what if that isolation itself could be weaponized, not endured, but used to shape reality itself? That is where true domination begins. Power is not about force. It is about influence undetected. The greatest manipulation is control disguised as freedom. When they act on your will while believing it was their choice. You don't command directly. You guide silently. You plant ideas, not orders. And soon, your rivals fight for the very outcome you designed. This is the art of invisible power, to shape decisions without appearing in them, to be present in effect, absent in credit, to move the world without leaving fingerprints. Ask yourself, how much control could you hold if no one realized you were holding it? How many could you rule if they never felt ruled? That is the Machiavellian path, cold, precise, psychological. It begins not with domination, but direction. If you understood this truth, leave your mark below. Comment your thoughts. subscribe for more strategies of control and self-mastery, and share this with those still trapped in the illusion of fairness. Let them learn that the silent hand always wins.